On my wedding day, my son and my daughter-in-law mocked my new husband in front of 400 guests. They said he wasn't a stepfather. They said he was trash. My daughter-in-law's entire family laughed out loud while I felt the world crumbling beneath my feet. I stood up, trembling with rage, and kicked everyone out of the party. It was then that my husband looked at me with a calmness I had never seen before and said something that changed my life forever. "Honey, I'm a billionaire. But let me tell you how I got to that moment. Because what happened next was something none of them ever imagined. It all started 3 hours earlier, when I, Barbara, at 61 years old, was standing in the most beautiful event hall I had ever seen. 400 guests filled every ivory velvet upholstered chair. The tables shimmered with cream silk tablecloths and centerpieces of white and gold flowers that looked like they were ripped straight from the pages of a bridal magazine. I had hired the best musicians, the best catering, all paid for with my life savings. I wanted that day to be perfect, because after 15 years of widowhood, of loneliness, of nights crying in silence, I had finally found love again. Robert was by my side at the altar, in his modest but impeccable gray suit, his silver hair neatly combed, his hands weathered by years of honest work. He wasn't rich. He didn't have a fancy car. He lived in a small apartment in a simple neighborhood. But when he looked at me, I felt like the most valuable woman in the universe. That was the only thing that mattered to me. Then I heard the first laugh. Loud, mocking, poisonous. It came from the third row, exactly where my son Jason was sitting next to his wife, Tiffany. He was 38 years old. He was wearing an Italian suit that cost more than $3,000. He wore a Rolex on his wrist and had always made it clear to me that money was the most important thing in life. Tiffany was worse. That 35-year-old woman, in her blood-red dress that was a size too small, her long nails painted black, and her attitude of superiority had made my life a living hell from the day she married my son. She came from a family that thought they were high society, even though we all knew her father had made his fortune with shady business deals. "Just look at that," I heard Tiffany whisper to her mother, but loud enough for me to hear. "The old lady is marrying a hobo." Her mother, a heavy-set woman with too much fake jewelry hanging from her neck, laughed, covering her mouth with her hand. "Poor Barbara. At her age, she can't get anything better." I felt my cheeks burning, but I kept my gaze fixed on the minister. Robert squeezed my hand gently, as if telling me everything would be okay. But things were just getting started. The minister continued with the ceremony, speaking about love, respect, and the sacred union of marriage. I tried to focus on his words, on this moment I had dreamed of for months, but the stifled laughter and cruel comments kept coming from where my own family was seated. "Did you see his shoes?" one of Tiffany's cousins whispered. "They look like they were bought at a flea market." "And that suit," another added. "My gardener dresses better." The entire row of Tiffany's family was snickering discreetly. They were like hyenas waiting for the perfect moment to attack. I felt my heart breaking into pieces, but Robert remained serene, dignified, as if none of it affected him. That gave me the strength to continue. The moment for the vows arrived. When Robert began to speak, his voice was steady and full of genuine emotion. "Barbara, from the day I met you, I knew you were the woman I wanted to spend the rest of my life with. I have no material riches to offer you, but I give you my whole heart, my eternal loyalty, and my promise to make you happy every single day I have left." Some people in the audience sighed, moved. I had tears in my eyes. But then I heard Jason let out a sarcastic laugh, loud and clear, that echoed through the entire hall. "This is pathetic," my son said aloud, without any shame. He stood up, champagne glass in hand, swaying slightly. He had been drinking since before the ceremony. "Seriously, Mom? This is the man you chose? This miserable old guy?" The hall fell into absolute silence. 400 people held their breath. The minister stopped speaking and looked at me with concern. Robert squeezed my hand tighter, but his expression remained calm, almost compassionate. "Jason, please," I tried to say, but my voice came out broken, humiliated. "No, Mom. Someone has to speak the truth here." Jason walked toward the center aisle, gesturing dramatically. "You worked your whole life. You sacrificed for me. Dad left you a nice inheritance, and this is what you do with it? Marry a nobody who probably just wants your money? Tiffany stood up too, with a malicious smile on her lips. Jason is right, Barbara. That isn't a stepfather. That's trash you picked up off the street. Her entire family burst into laughter. The mother, the father, the uncles, the cousins. Everyone laughing, pointing, pulling out their phones to record the moment. It was as if they were at a circus and we were the clowns. But then something inside me snapped. It wasn't sadness. It was fury, a burning rage that ran through me from head to toe. I let go of Robert's hand and walked directly toward my son. You know what, Jason? My voice sounded different, stronger, firmer than I had heard it in years. You're right about something. Someone does have to speak the truth here. The silence in that hall was so thick you could cut it with a knife. 400 people watched me with wide eyes, waiting to see what poor, humiliated Barbara would do. My son Jason had that arrogant smile on his face, the same smile he'd used since he was a child when he thought he had won an argument. Tiffany was standing next to him, arms crossed, with that expression of superiority I hated so much. Her whole family kept snickering, enjoying the show as if it were the most entertaining thing they had seen in years. The truth, I repeated, feeling every word leave my mouth with a weight I had never felt before, is that I spent 35 years of my life married to your father. 35 years where I worked 12 hours a day cleaning other people's houses so you could go to the best private school. 35 years where I broke my back, destroyed my hands, sacrificed my health and my youth to give you everything you needed. Jason blinked, and for a second I saw a flash of discomfort in his eyes. But he hid it quickly by taking another sip of his champagne. Your father was a good man, I continued, feeling tears beginning to pool in my eyes but refusing to let them fall. But when he died 15 years ago, he left me alone, completely alone. Do you know how many times I came to your house asking you to spend time with me? How many times I called you crying because the loneliness was killing me? Mom, don't make a drama, Jason said, but his voice sounded less sure now. Drama? I laughed, but it was a bitter laugh, full of pain. Drama is being alone every Christmas because you were too busy with Tiffany's family. Drama is spending my 61st, 60th, 59th birthdays completely alone because you wouldn't even dignify me with a text message? Some people in the audience began to murmur. I could see faces of disapproval directed toward my son. But Tiffany wasn't going to stay quiet. Oh, please, she spat, taking a step forward with her heels clicking against the marble floor. Always the victim, right, Barbara? Always complaining, always needing attention. You know what? Jason has his own life. He can't be babysitting you like you're a child. Babysitting me, I whispered, feeling something inside me beginning to crack. I didn't ask him to take care of me. I just asked for a little love, a little respect, a little of the affection I gave him his entire life. Robert was still standing by the altar, observing the scene with a serene but attentive expression. He didn't intervene, didn't stop me. He simply stood there, giving me the space to say what I had held back for so many years. And now my voice trembled, but it remained strong. Now that I've finally found someone who makes me feel alive again, someone who treats me with dignity and respect, you come to destroy it? You come, my own son, to humiliate me in front of everyone. Because that man is a gold digger, Jason shouted, pointing at Robert with contempt. Look at him. Look closely. He dresses like a bum. He lives in a dump of an apartment. He probably doesn't even have a bank account. And I'm supposed to be happy that my mother is marrying that? Tiffany's family applauded and shouted in support. Exactly, yelled Tiffany's father, a fat man with a greasy mustache who always smelled of cheap cigars. That miserable old man just wants your mom's money. It's obvious. You should be grateful Jason worries about you, added Tiffany's mother, shaking her multiple gold bracelets ostentatiously. He's just protecting your assets. My assets. The words left my mouth like poison. Since when do you care about my assets, Jason? Since when do you care about anything that isn't your own benefit? That's not fair, he protested, but his face was turning red. Not fair? Let me tell you what isn't fair. It isn't fair that when I needed $15,000 for surgery 3 years ago, you told me you didn't have any money, but 2 weeks later you bought that Rolex you're wearing. It isn't fair that when I asked to borrow $5,000 to repair my house, you made me sign a document with interest as if I were a stranger. It isn't fair that every time I asked for help, you treated me like a nuisance, like I was a burden." The murmurs in the audience grew louder. I could see people nodding their heads, others looking at Jason with critical eyes. My friends, the few I had invited, had tears in their eyes. Susan, my best friend of 30 years, was crying openly. But Tiffany wasn't finished. That woman never knew when to shut up. "You know what's really happening here, Barbara," she said, walking toward me with that attitude of superiority that made my blood boil. "You're desperate. You're old, you're alone, and you grabbed the first man who paid you any attention. It's pathetic. It's embarrassing, and frankly, my entire family is here as witnesses to the worst decision you've made in your life." Her whole family roared in approval. The cousins, the uncles, even the friends they had brought. Everyone laughing, everyone mocking. Some were recording with their phones, capturing every second of my humiliation to share later on social media. I could imagine the titles: "Crazy Old Lady Marries Hobo," or "The Most Pathetic Wedding of the Year." I felt something inside me finally break. It wasn't sadness. It wasn't pain. It was determination, a strength I didn't know I had. I turned around and walked toward Robert, who was still standing by the altar with that inexplicable calm. I took his hand and looked him in the eyes. "Are you sure you want to marry me?" I asked quietly. "Because my family is a disaster, and they clearly don't deserve to be here." Robert smiled. It was a small smile, but there was something in it, something I couldn't decipher. "Barbara, my love, I have never been more sure of anything in my life. And you're right. There are people here who don't deserve to witness this moment." I turned back toward the 400 guests. Most were good people, true friends, co-workers, neighbors who appreciated me. But there was a specific group that had turned the most important day of my life into a nightmare. "Jason," I said, and my voice resonated through the hall with an authority I had never used with my son. "You, Tiffany, and her entire family. Out, get out of my wedding, get out of my life." The silence that followed was deafening. Jason looked at me as if I had slapped him. "What?" he stuttered. "Mom, you can't be serious." "I have never been more serious in my life. I want you to leave. Now." Tiffany let out a hysterical laugh. "You're kicking us out? Us? Your own family?" "Not my family," I replied coldly. "You and your parasites, yes. You have 5 minutes to get out of this hall, or I'm calling security." Jason looked at me as if he couldn't believe what he was hearing. His face went from shock to indignation in a matter of seconds. "You're kicking me out of your wedding? Me, your only son." "Yes," I answered without hesitating for a second. "I am kicking you out. You, your wife, and that whole family of vipers you brought with you." Tiffany stepped forward, pointing her index finger at me threateningly. Her black nails looked like claws ready to attack. "You can't do this, you stupid old woman. You have no right." "I have every right in the world. This is my wedding. I paid every penny for this event. I hired this venue, I hired the food, I hired the musicians, and I have every right to decide who stays and who goes. And you people are definitely going." Tiffany's father stood up from his seat, his belly protruding over his belt. "Who do you think you are to talk to us like that? My family has influence in this city. We can ruin you." "Ruin me then," I said, feeling a bravery I didn't know existed within me. "You already ruined the most important day of my life. What more can you do to me?" Tiffany's mother stood up too, clanking all her gold bracelets scandalously. "This is an insult, a total lack of respect. We came all the way here to support this ridiculous marriage, and this is how you repay us." "Support?" I laughed bitterly. "You call mocking my husband support? Calling him trash? Humiliating him in front of everyone? That isn't support. That is pure cruelty." One of Tiffany's cousins, a young guy with too much gel in his hair, yelled from his table, "Your husband is trash. We all know it. Just look at him. He looks like a hobo you picked up off the street." Several members of his family laughed and applauded. They were enjoying this. They were really enjoying destroying me on my own special day. Robert finally spoke. His voice was calm, almost kind, but there was a tone of firmness I had never heard before. "Young man, you don't know me. You know nothing about me, and yet, you feel you have the right to insult me. What does that say about you?" The cousin shut up immediately, as if something in Robert's voice had disarmed him. But Jason wasn't going to give up so easily. He walked up to me, his breath smelling of alcohol and his face red with fury. "Mom, if you kick us out now, if you do this, you will never see me again. You will never see your grandchildren again. I swear to God." Those words hit me like a punch in the stomach. My grandchildren, Mason, 6 years old, and Harper, 4. I loved them with all my heart. The idea of never seeing them again was devastating. But then I looked at Robert. I looked at this man who had treated me with more respect and dignity in 6 months of dating than my own son had in the last 15 years. And I knew I had to choose. I had to choose my own happiness for once in my life. "If that is your decision, Jason," I said, and my voice cracked a little, but I didn't stop. "Then so be it. I am not going to let you manipulate me anymore. I am not going to allow you to use me as your personal bank while treating me like trash when you don't need me." "You are selfish," Tiffany screamed, a selfish old woman choosing a stranger over her own family. "He isn't a stranger," I replied calmly. "He is the man I love, and if you people can't respect that, then you have no place in my life." Jason looked at me with so much hate he almost made me recoil. "You're going to regret this. When that old man steals everything you have, when he leaves you on the street with nothing, don't come crying to my door asking for help." "Don't worry," I said, feeling tears finally begin to roll down my cheeks. "I won't." The atmosphere in the hall was one of absolute tension. The other guests watched the scene with a mixture of horror and fascination. Some of my friends looked like they wanted to intervene, but stood still, not knowing what to do. Susan, my best friend, finally stood up. She was a 63-year-old woman with short white hair and a strong personality I had always admired. "Jason, Tiffany, if you have any decency, you will leave right now and leave Barbara alone. What you are doing is cruel and unforgivable." "You shut up, you nosy old hag," Tiffany snapped at her. "This isn't your problem." "It is my problem when I see my best friend being mistreated by her own family," Susan replied firmly. "And honestly, after seeing how you behave, I perfectly understand why Barbara prefers to marry Robert. He has more class in his pinky finger than all of you combined." That infuriated Tiffany's family even more. They started yelling all at the same time, creating absolute chaos. Insults flew through the air. Some people started getting up from their seats. The hall that half an hour ago was a place of elegance and celebration now looked like a battlefield. "Enough!" I shouted with all the strength in my lungs. My voice echoed through the space, silencing everyone instantly. "I am calling security right now if you don't leave voluntarily," I signaled to the venue manager, a tall, professional man who had been watching everything from the entrance. He nodded and began walking toward us with 2 security guards. "We don't need to be thrown out," Jason said with disdain. "We are leaving of our own free will. This place stinks anyway. And you," he pointed his finger at me, "you disgust me. I hope you're happy with your decision, because you will never have your family again." "Real family doesn't treat you like this," I replied, and I felt Robert move closer to me and take my hand, giving me strength. Tiffany grabbed her designer bag, the same one I had helped her buy last year when she asked to borrow $3,000 she never paid back. "Let's get out of here. This wedding is a bad joke anyway." One by one, Tiffany's entire family began to get up from their seats. There were about 20 people in total. They gathered their things with exaggerated movements, making as much noise as possible, ensuring their exit was as dramatic as their behavior during the entire ceremony. "This isn't going to stay like this," shouted Tiffany's father as he walked toward the exit. "Everyone in this city is going to know what kind of woman you are." "Let them know," I said with a calm that surprised even me. "I don't care what they think anymore." As the procession of toxic people left the hall, some even pushing chairs and throwing napkins on the floor as a final act of rebellion, the rest of the guests remained in absolute silence. It was as if everyone was holding their breath, waiting to see what would happen next. Jason was the last to go. He stopped at the door, looked at me one last time, and said, "Goodbye, Mom. I hope your new life with that loser is worth losing your only son." And he left. The door closed behind him with a final sound that resonated in my heart like a definitive slam. I stood there, in the middle of the hall, shaking. I had just kicked my son out of my wedding. I had potentially broken my relationship with him forever. I had just lost access to my grandchildren, the only innocent creatures in this entire horrible situation. Tears fell freely down my face now. My makeup was ruined. My champagne-colored dress had tear stains. The happiest day of my life had turned into an absolute nightmare. Then I felt Robert's arms surrounding me. He hugged me with such tenderness, with such strength, that for a moment I felt everything would be okay. "I'm so sorry, honey," I whispered against his chest. "I ruined everything. I ruined our wedding." "You didn't ruin anything," he said softly, stroking my hair. "You did the right thing, the brave thing. And I am so proud of you." We stayed like that for a moment, hugging in the middle of the chaos that had been left behind. The other guests began to applaud slowly. First Susan, then other friends, until the entire hall was clapping. It wasn't applause of celebration. It was applause of support, of solidarity. Robert separated gently from me and took my hands. He looked me in the eyes with an intensity I had never seen before. "Barbara, my love, there is something I need to tell you." "What is it?" I asked, wiping my tears. He took a deep breath, as if he were about to reveal something important. "I am not who you think I am." My heart stopped for a second. What did that mean? After everything that had just happened, did he have a secret too? "Robert, what are you saying?" My voice trembled. He smiled, but it was a strange smile, sad and happy at the same time. "Honey, I'm a billionaire." I stared at him as if he had spoken in another language. The words had left his mouth, reached my ears, but my brain refused to process them. "What did you say?" "I am a billionaire, Barbara," Robert repeated with absolute calm. "I have over $2 billion in assets, properties in 12 countries, companies, investments, everything." I felt my legs beginning to give out. Susan ran toward me and held me by the arm. "Barbara, breathe, breathe, friend." But I couldn't breathe. I couldn't think. Everything that had happened in the last hour, the humiliation, the pain, kicking out my own son, and now this. "I don't understand. I don't understand anything. You live in a small apartment. You drive an old car. Your clothes. It is all a conscious choice," Robert said, and his voice was so gentle it made me want to cry again. After my first wife died 8 years ago, after seeing how everyone around me only wanted my money, I decided to live simply. I wanted to find someone who loved me for who I am, not for what I have. The hall was in complete silence. Everyone was listening to every word with absolute attention. This was more dramatic than any soap opera they had ever seen. "That's why you wear those clothes," I whispered, beginning to understand. "That's why you live in that place. That's why you never let me pay when we went out." "Exactly," he nodded. "And I found exactly what I was looking for. I found you, Barbara, a genuine woman with a good heart who treated me with respect and affection even when she thought I had nothing to offer except my love." Tears returned to my eyes, but this time they were different. They weren't tears of pain or humiliation. They were tears of something I couldn't name yet. "Why tell me now? Why here, after all this?" Robert looked toward the door where Jason and Tiffany had left minutes before. "Because I wanted you to see who they really are. I wanted you to see their true character when they thought I was nothing. And I wanted you to make your own decision about them before knowing the truth about me." "My God," I whispered, bringing my hands to my face. My son just insulted and humiliated a billionaire." "Your son just insulted and humiliated the man you love," Robert corrected gently. "The money shouldn't change that." He was right. He was absolutely right. But my mind kept spinning, processing this impossible information. $2 billion? How? From where? Robert smiled, and for the first time, I saw a flash of pride in his eyes. "I started with nothing, just like you. I worked in construction for 20 years. I saved every penny. I invested in real estate when no one else did. I bought properties everyone said were worthless. I built an empire brick by brick. But when my wife, my beloved Letitia, died of cancer, all that money meant nothing. I couldn't save her. I couldn't make her stay with me one day longer." His voice cracked at the end, and I saw genuine pain in his eyes. This man had suffered. He had loved and lost, just like me. "After her death," I continued, Everyone around me changed. My friends only called me when they needed money. The women who sought me out only saw dollar signs. My own in-laws tried to sue me for the inheritance. I realized that money had poisoned all my relationships, so I decided to disappear from the radar. I kept my businesses, but I changed my lifestyle completely. Susan was still by my side, holding me, but even she was slack-jawed listening to this story. Meeting you, Barbara. Robert took my hands in his. It was like living again. You treated me with dignity. You listened to me when I spoke. You laughed at my bad jokes. You cooked me your homemade food. You invited me to your home without caring that my clothes were old or my car was rusty. You loved me for who I am. I don't know what to say, I stuttered. My world had been completely turned upside down in less than 2 hours. You don't have to say anything now, he said, caressing my cheek tenderly. I know it's a lot of information. I know all this is overwhelming, but I wanted you to know. I wanted you to know that you made the right decision, that defending our love, defending our relationship, was worth it. Suddenly, everything began to fit in my mind like pieces of a puzzle. The small details I had noticed but never questioned. The way Robert always seemed so self-assured, the way he talked about business with deep knowledge, the times he had casually mentioned traveling the world, his education, his vocabulary, his way of carrying himself. Everything made sense now. Did anyone else know? I asked. Did anyone know the truth about you? My lawyer, Charles, Robert replied. He is here today, in row 12. He has been handling my affairs for the last 8 years. I asked him to come to our wedding as a witness. I looked toward row 12 and saw a distinguished man of about 50, dressed in a clearly expensive suit, nodding when our eyes met. He looked like someone important. How had I not noticed him before? And what happens now? I asked, feeling completely lost. What does all this mean for us? Robert smiled at me with that same love I had seen in his eyes from the first day we met. It means that now we can start our life together without secrets. It means I can give you everything you deserve. It means you will never have to worry about money, about security, about anything ever again. But more important than all that, he squeezed my hands tighter. It means I found someone who truly loves me, and that is worth more than all the millions in the world. Tears fell down my face freely now. I couldn't control them. Everything was too much. The emotion, the shock, the revelation, everything mixed into a whirlwind of feelings I couldn't process. Susan hugged me tightly. Friend, I always told you this man was special. I always knew it. Other guests began to approach, offering words of support and congratulations. But I was still in a state of shock, trying to process this new reality. There is something else you should know, Robert said softly. The money your son Jason lent you with interest, the $5,000. I already paid it without you knowing. I deposited the full amount into his account 3 months ago. What? My voice sounded like a squeak. I didn't want you to have that debt on your shoulders, but I asked Charles to do it anonymously. I wanted to see if Jason would mention it to you, if he would return the money or tell you the debt was settled. He never told you anything, did he? I shook my head slowly, feeling a new wave of betrayal hit me. He never told me anything. In fact, 2 weeks ago he called me, asking when I was going to pay him. Robert sighed sadly. I imagined so. That's why I needed you to see his true character before we got married. I needed you to know exactly who you were dealing with. Then it all made sense. The test. It had all been a test, not for me, but to reveal the true nature of the people around me. And everyone had failed spectacularly. My son, I whispered, feeling my heart breaking again. My own son was scamming me. I am so sorry, love, Robert said, hugging me. I know it hurts. I know it's devastating. But it was better that you knew now than to keep living in ignorance. He was right. Of course he was right. But that didn't make it hurt any less. My only son, the baby I had carried in my womb for 9 months, the boy I had raised with so much love and sacrifice, had been stealing from me. He had been lying to me. He had been using me. And today, at my wedding, he had shown his true face. What do we do now? I asked, feeling completely exhausted. Robert looked me in the eyes with determination. Now we continue with our wedding. Now we get married surrounded by the people who truly love and support us. And after we start our new life together. The minister, who had remained silent during all the drama, approached us with an expression of genuine compassion. He was an older man, about 70, with decades of experience officiating weddings, but even for him, this had been extraordinary. "Do you wish to continue with the ceremony?" he asked gently. I looked at Robert. I looked at the hall full of people who had witnessed my humiliation and my defense. I looked at Susan, who smiled at me with tears in her eyes, and I knew the answer. "Yes," I said with a firm voice. "Yes, we want to continue." The next few minutes were a whirlwind of emotions. The minister resumed the ceremony where we had left off. This time, there were no interruptions. There was no cruel laughter. There were no hurtful comments. There was only love, support, and a completely different energy in the atmosphere. When Robert put the ring on my finger, I felt like I was starting a completely new life. And when they pronounced me his wife, the hall erupted in genuine, sincere applause. I kissed my husband, and in that moment, all the pain of the last few hours vanished momentarily. I was happy. I was married to the love of my life, and nothing else mattered in that instant. The reception was beautiful. Without the toxic presence of Jason, Tiffany, and her family, the atmosphere transformed completely. People danced, laughed, celebrated with true joy. My friends constantly came up to congratulate me and tell me how brave I had been. Some even admitted they had always thought Jason treated me poorly but had never dared to tell me. During dinner, Robert stood up and asked for everyone's attention. The hall went quiet. "I want to thank everyone who stayed today," he began, his voice resonating with natural authority. "You have witnessed something very difficult, but also something very important. You have seen an incredible woman defend her dignity and her right to be happy, and I want you to know that I feel honored to be her husband." Applause filled the hall. Robert continued. "I also want to clarify something. Some of you heard my confession a while ago, and I know many have questions, so let me be completely transparent. I am the founder and owner of Pacific Construction, one of the largest real estate development companies in Latin America and the U.S. There was a collective gasp. Pacific Construction was legendary. They had built some of the most iconic buildings in the region. Luxury hotels, malls, residential complexes. I myself had cleaned some of those buildings when I worked in janitorial services. The reason I never mentioned it, Robert continued, is because after losing my first wife, I realized money attracted the wrong people. I wanted to find true love, not interest. And I found it in Barbara. This woman loved me when she thought I was a simple retired worker. She gave me her heart without expecting anything in return. And that, my friends, is priceless. He took my hand and lifted me up to stand beside him. So now, I want to promise her in front of all of you that I will dedicate the rest of my life to making her happy, giving her everything she deserves, and protecting her from anyone who tries to harm her. The ovation was deafening. Susan was weeping openly. Other friends hugged each other emotionally. It was as if everyone shared my happiness in a deep, genuine way. But amidst all that joy, my mind kept returning to one image: Jason's face when he left the hall. The rage, the contempt, the absolute certainty that I was making the biggest mistake of my life. And I wondered, what would he be thinking now? Would he have heard the rumors about who Robert really was? Would he know by now that he had insulted and humiliated a billionaire? As if Robert could read my thoughts, he leaned toward me during the dance and whispered, "I know you're thinking about him. It's normal. He's your son." "I can't help it," I admitted. "Despite everything he did, he is still my son, and it hurts. It hurts a lot." "I know, honey, and I don't expect that to change overnight. But I want you to know something. The fact that he is your son doesn't give him the right to mistreat you. Family love shouldn't include abuse, manipulation, or humiliation." He was right. I knew it in my heart. But a mother's heart is complicated. You can know your child has hurt you deeply and still love him. You can recognize his toxicity and still miss him. It is a painful contradiction that only mothers completely understand. The party continued late into the night. We danced, ate cake, toasted with champagne that probably cost more than I earned in a month when I cleaned houses. Everything was surreal. This morning I had woken up as Barbara, the 61-year-old woman who had worked hard all her life to survive. Now I was going to sleep as Barbara, the wife of a billionaire. When we finally retired to the bridal suite Robert had reserved at the most luxurious hotel in the city, I felt overwhelmed by everything. The room was bigger than my entire apartment. It had floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the entire lit-up city. A huge bed with sheets that probably cost thousands of dollars. A marble bathroom with a tub that looked like a small pool. "Are you okay?" Robert asked, taking off his jacket. I sat on the edge of the bed, still wearing my champagne-colored dress. "Honestly, I don't know. I feel like I'm in a dream, or maybe a nightmare, or both at the same time." Robert sat next to me and took my hand. "I know it's a lot to process. Everything changed in a matter of hours. But I want you to know something very important, Barbara. Nothing between us has changed. I am still the same man you met 6 months ago. The same man who fell in love with your laugh, your kindness, your strength. The money is just money. It doesn't define who I am. But it changes everything," I whispered. "It changes absolutely everything." "It doesn't have to," he insisted. "We can keep living simply if that is what you want. Or we can enjoy some comforts. You decide. This is our life now, our decision." I looked him in the eyes and saw the same tenderness I had always seen, the same gentleness, the same love. And I realized he was right. The money hadn't changed him. He was still Robert, my Robert. "I want to ask you something," I said after a moment of silence. "Why me? Of all the women you could have chosen, why did you choose a 61-year-old widow with a problematic son and a complicated life?" Robert smiled, and it was that smile that made my heart melt. "Do you remember the day we met?" I nodded. It had been at the local grocery store. I was buying vegetables, trying to find the cheapest ones. He was in the same aisle, and our carts had collided accidentally. "You apologized like 5 times, Robert recalled with a smile. "And then, when you saw a tomato had fallen from my cart and rolled under a shelf, you got down on your knees to pick it up. You knelt down, with your bad knee that always bothers you, to pick up my tomato. And when you handed it back and I thanked you, you smiled at me with such warmth, with such genuine kindness, that I knew in that moment you were special." I didn't remember that detail about the tomato. It had been such a small, insignificant gesture. "After that," he continued, "we started running into each other regularly at the store, always on Thursday mornings. And every time I saw you, I learned something new about you. Your patience with the clerks, your generosity with the kids selling candy outside, the way you greeted everyone with respect, no matter who they were. I saw your soul, Barbara, and I fell in love with it." Tears began to fall down my cheeks again. It seemed I hadn't stopped crying all day. "So yes," said Robert, wiping my tears with his thumbs. "Of all the women I could have chosen, I chose you, because you are real, because you are good, because you make me feel alive again." We kissed, and in that kiss was a promise of a future together, no matter what challenges came. But even in that perfect moment, in that luxurious room, with my new husband by my side, a part of me couldn't stop thinking about Jason, about how he would react when he found out the whole truth, about if we could ever repair our relationship, and if I really wanted to try after everything he had done. I woke up the next morning in that huge bed, wrapped in sheets that felt like clouds. For a moment, I thought it had all been a dream. The wedding, the humiliation, Robert's revelation. But then I turned my head and saw him there, sleeping peacefully beside me, and I knew it was all real. Everything had happened. My life had changed forever in 24 hours. I got up carefully, so as not to wake him, and walked toward the giant windows. The city stretched out below us, bathed in the golden light of dawn. From this height, everything looked so small, so insignificant, and I wondered if this was how Robert saw the world from his position of power and wealth. "Good morning, my love," I heard his voice behind me. I turned and saw him sitting up in bed, hair messy and a soft smile on his face. "Good morning," I replied, feeling a mix of happiness and anxiety. I couldn't sleep anymore. Understandable. Yesterday was an intense day. He got up and walked toward me, wrapping me in a hug from behind. "What are you thinking about?" "Everything," I admitted. "About Jason. About what happened. About what comes next. Robert kissed my head softly. I have something to show you. Something I think will help you better understand who I am and what our new life together means. Half an hour later, we were in a private helicopter. A helicopter. Never in my life had I imagined I would be flying in one. Robert handled the controls with the ease of someone who had done it 1,000 times before. I learned to fly 20 years ago, he explained when he saw my surprised face. It's useful for business and, besides, it gives me freedom. We flew over the city, and Robert began pointing out different buildings. That hotel there, the Grand Plaza, is mine. I built it 15 years ago. It has 400 rooms and is one of the most successful in the region. He pointed to another side. That mall, the Sunwalk Promenade, is also mine. And those 3 apartment buildings over there, and that industrial complex near the port, with every building he pointed out, my disbelief grew. He wasn't just rich. He owned significant parts of the city where I had lived my entire life. I had cleaned floors in some of those buildings, never knowing who their true owner was. Do you see that hospital? He pointed toward a modern building with a red cross on the roof. I donated it 5 years ago. My wife Letitia died of cancer, and the public health system didn't have the necessary resources. So I built a complete hospital dedicated to free oncology treatment for low-income people. That information hit me like a punch. Free? Completely free, he confirmed. No one should die because they can't pay for their treatment. Letitia had access to the best doctors in the world, and we still couldn't save her. But at least I can help others who don't even have that opportunity. I began to see Robert in a completely different light. He wasn't just a rich man. He was a man who used his wealth to do good, to help others, to build something meaningful. I also have foundations, he continued, as we landed on the roof of an impressive building. One for educational scholarships, another for social housing, and another for entrepreneurs who need starting capital but can't get bank loans. We got out of the helicopter and entered the building. It was the headquarters of Pacific Construction. The offices were elegant, but not ostentatious. There were employees working in open, bright spaces. Everyone greeted Robert with genuine respect, not the servile fear I had seen in other places where bosses were feared. I want to introduce you to someone, Robert said, guiding me toward a large office on the top floor. Inside was Charles, the lawyer he had mentioned at the wedding. He was a distinguished man with silver hair and an imposing presence. Mrs. Barbara, he greeted me with a slight bow. It is an honor to finally meet you properly. Robert has spoken a lot about you over the last 6 months. Really? I asked, surprised. Of course, Charles smiled. He told me constantly that he had found someone special, someone genuine. And after what I witnessed yesterday at the wedding, I can confirm he was right. Robert signaled for us to sit. Charles, show Barbara the documents we prepared. Charles opened a leather folder and pulled out several papers. Mrs. Barbara, your husband has prepared some important documents. First, he has added your name to all his main bank accounts. You have full access to all his funds. My mouth dropped open. What? No, I can't accept that. We just got married yesterday. You are my wife, Robert said firmly. What is mine is yours. It's that simple. Furthermore, Charles continued, he has transferred ownership of 3 properties to your name: a beach house, an apartment in the city, and a ranch in the mountains. He has also established an investment fund in your name with an initial value of $50 million. I felt dizzy. $50 million. For me. A woman who had spent most of her life worrying about how to pay the rent every month. Robert, this is too much, I protested. I can't. Yes, you can, he interrupted gently. And there is more. I have also established trust funds for your grandchildren. Mason and Harper will each have $10 million available when they turn 25, specifically designated for their education, starting a business, or whatever they choose to do with their lives. Tears began to fall down my face. My grandchildren. Despite everything Jason had done, Robert was thinking about my grandchildren's future. Why? Was all I could say. Because they are innocent, Robert replied. Because they aren't to blame for their parents' actions. And because they are your blood, Barbara. They are important to you, so they are important to me. Charles continued explaining more details. There were life insurance policies, diversified investments, commercial properties. The amount of money was so astronomical my brain simply couldn't process it. Also, Robert said after Charles finished, I want you to know you have total freedom over how you want to live your life. If you want to keep living simply, we can do that. If you want to travel the world, we will do it. If you want to dedicate yourself to charitable causes, I will support you completely. This is your life now, Barbara. You decide how you want to live it. We spent the rest of the day touring his company's facilities. I met managers, architects, engineers. Everyone spoke of Robert with genuine admiration. He wasn't just a boss. He was a leader who cared about his people. He had created training programs, generous benefits, opportunities for real growth. My philosophy has always been simple, he explained as we ate in an exclusive restaurant on the building's top floor. If you take care of your people take care of your business. Many of my employees have been with me for over 20 years. I have seen them grow, start families, achieve their dreams, and that makes me happier than any amount of money. In the afternoon, when we returned to the hotel suite, I felt completely overwhelmed. I had seen and learned so much in a single day. My perspective on everything had changed drastically. How are you processing all this? Robert asked as we sat on the balcony with a glass of wine. Honestly, I don't know, I admitted. Part of me still feels like I'm going to wake up and it will all be a dream. Another part of me feels guilty. Guilty? Why? Because while I struggled to survive, cleaning floors in buildings that were yours, you had all this power, all this wealth. It feels, I don't know, disproportionate. Robert nodded thoughtfully. I understand that feeling. Inequality in the world is brutal and unfair. That's why I do what I do. The foundations, the hospital, the housing programs. I try to use my privilege to create opportunities for others. But you're right. It will never be enough. I can never completely compensate for the injustice of the system. And Jason? I asked, finally voicing the question that had been haunting my mind all day. What happens with him? Robert sighed. Charles has been monitoring the situation. Apparently, your son and Tiffany are having some serious financial problems. They have been living beyond their means for years. They have massive debts. And now, after what happened yesterday, some of their business partners are distancing themselves from them. How do you know all that? I asked, surprised. Because I asked for them to be investigated, Robert admitted. Not to hurt them, but to understand the full situation. And what we discovered is worrying. Barbara, your son is on the brink of bankruptcy. He owes money to many dangerous people. I felt my stomach twist. How bad is the situation? Very bad. He owes close to $2 million between bank loans, credit cards, and failed investments. And some of his creditors aren't exactly patient or legal. My heart sank. Despite everything Jason had done to me, he was still my son. The idea that he was in danger terrified me. $2 million, I repeated, feeling panic begin to take over. How is it possible he owes so much money? Robert took my hand. According to Charles's investigation, Jason invested in several fraudulent businesses. He bought stocks in shell companies. He borrowed money at usurious rates to maintain his luxurious lifestyle. And Tiffany didn't help. She spends as if money were unlimited. Designer bags, jewelry, trips to Europe, all on credit cards that are already maxed out. I brought my hands to my face. My God. And here I am, with access to millions, while my son is sinking in debt. Barbara, look at me. Robert lifted my chin gently so our eyes met. Your son humiliated you publicly. He called you horrible things. He ruined the most important day of your life, and he did it when he thought I had nothing to offer you. Do you really believe he deserves your compassion after that? He's my son, I whispered, tears starting to fall again. I know he treated me horribly. I know he was cruel. But he's still my son, Robert. I can't just turn off those feelings. Robert nodded with understanding. I know, and I'm not asking you to. But you need to understand something. If you give him money now, if you rescue Jason from this situation, he will never learn. He will never face the consequences of his actions. And most importantly, he will never truly value your sacrifice. But you said some of his creditors are dangerous. What if they hurt him? What if they hurt Tiffany? Or worse, my grandchildren? The kids are safe, Robert assured. Charles already took care of that. We hired discreet security to watch them. No one will touch Mason or Harper, I promise you. That information gave me some relief, but the knot in my stomach wouldn't disappear. And Jason? Are you watching him too? Yes. And here is where things get interesting. Robert leaned back in his chair. His expression became more serious. 3 days ago, Jason found out who I really am. A partner of his showed him a Forbes article where I appear on the list of the richest men in Latin America. My heart stopped. And what did he do? At first he didn't believe it. He thought it was a coincidence of names. But then he looked up photos and recognized me. Since that moment, he has tried to contact me 12 times. Calls, messages, emails. All through my company's official channels. And what did you do? Nothing. I ignored every attempt. But Charles saved all the messages. Do you want to hear what they said? I wasn't sure I wanted to know, but I nodded anyway. Robert took out his phone and began to read. First message. Mr. Robert Sterling, I am very sorry for the misunderstanding at the wedding. I didn't know who you were. Please allow me to explain. He paused and looked at me. Notice how he says he regrets the misunderstanding, not his actions, as if the problem was that he didn't know I was rich. He continued reading. Second message. Sir, I am Jason, Barbara's son. I need to speak urgently with you about a business matter. I have a proposal that could be mutually beneficial. Robert let out a bitter laugh. He doesn't even mention his mother. He goes straight to asking for business favors. Third message, he continued reading. This one was sent last night. Mr. Sterling, I am going through a complicated financial situation. As your wife's son, I hoped we could speak as family. I am sure we can reach an agreement that benefits everyone, especially Mom. I felt nauseous. Is he using my name to manipulate you? Exactly. And there is more. Message number 7. Mr. Robert, I know I made mistakes at the wedding. I was drunk and wasn't thinking clearly. But I am Barbara's only son. The grandchildren she adores are my children. Do you really want to break that family relationship? I can make her happy if you help me solve my current problems. That is emotional blackmail, I said, feeling rage begin to replace concern. Absolutely. And the most recent message, sent this morning. Robert, I need $500,000 by the end of the week, or I will be in serious trouble. As my mother's husband, you have a moral obligation to help her family. I promise to pay it all back with interest. I trust in your understanding. I stayed silent for a long moment, processing everything I had just heard. My son hadn't called to apologize to me. He hadn't tried to repair our relationship. He hadn't shown an ounce of genuine regret. He only wanted money. He was just trying to use my marriage to solve his own financial problems. What do you plan to do? I asked finally. The question is, what do you want me to do? Robert replied. You are his mother. You are my wife. This decision affects you as much as me. I stood up and walked toward the edge of the balcony, looking at the city stretching out beneath us. Somewhere down there, my son was desperate, scared, probably planning his next move. Part of me, that maternal part that never disappears no matter how much they hurt you, wanted to run and save him. I wanted to give him the money and solve all his problems. But another part of me, the part that had been humiliated in front of 400 people, the part that had been used and manipulated for years, the part that had finally found the strength to defend her dignity, knew that would be a mistake. Don't give him the money, I said finally, my voice firmer than I expected. Not yet. Not like this. Robert walked over to me and hugged me from behind. Are you sure? No, I admitted. But I know it's the right thing. If we give him the money now, without real consequences for his actions, we will only be feeding his behavior. He needs to hit rock bottom. He needs to understand that he can't treat people like that and get away with it. It is a brave decision, Robert said, kissing my head. It is a painful decision, I corrected, but necessary. The next few days were an emotional roller coaster. Robert and I went on our honeymoon to a private island in the Caribbean that, of course, he owned. It was a paradise with white sandy beaches, crystal clear waters, and absolute privacy. I tried to relax, to enjoy this time with my new husband, but my mind kept going back to Jason. Charles kept us informed of the situation. Jason's creditors were starting to put on the pressure. They had repossessed his luxury car. They had frozen his bank accounts. The house where he lived with Tiffany and the kids was in foreclosure. And Tiffany? I asked during one of the video call updates. She left Jason 2 days ago, Charles informed with his usual professional tone. She went to live with her parents and took the children. She filed for divorce yesterday morning. I felt a pang of pain for Jason, despite everything. Being abandoned by your wife, losing your children, facing financial ruin, all at the same time. It was devastating. And how is he? I asked. Not well, Charles admitted. Our contacts say he has been drinking heavily. He isn't eating properly. He has tried to contact several of his former friends and partners, but everyone has turned their back on him now that they know he is broke. How convenient, I muttered bitterly. There is something else, Charles continued. Jason tried to sell his story to the media. He called several newspapers and TV shows, offering an exclusive on how his mother married a billionaire and abandoned him in his time of need. What? I shouted, feeling rage invade me. Don't worry, Robert took my hand. Our PR team already handled it. No reputable outlet will touch that story, especially after we showed them the videos of the wedding where he publicly humiliates you. There are videos? I asked, surprised. Of course, several guests recorded the whole incident, and with your permission, we have used them strategically to protect your reputation. If Jason tries to paint you as the villain, we have clear evidence of who really acted poorly. I sat in silence, absorbing all this information. My son had fallen so low that he was trying to sell me out to the media. He was trying to use my happiness, my new life, as a way to make money and victimize himself. I said slowly. I need to see him. Robert looked at me with concern. Are you sure that's a good idea? No, but I need to do it. I need to look him in the eyes and tell him exactly how I feel. I need that closure. 3 days later, I was standing in front of a dilapidated apartment building in one of the poorest neighborhoods in the city. It was an area I knew well. I had lived in similar places for years when Jason was small. The smell of dampness and trash filled the air. The walls were covered in graffiti, and the stairs creaked dangerously under my feet as I went up to the 3rd floor. Robert had insisted on accompanying me, but I asked him to wait in the car with the bodyguards, who now, apparently, were a permanent part of my life. This was something I needed to do alone. I knocked on the door of apartment number 32. I heard shuffling footsteps on the other side, and then the door opened slowly. What I saw broke my heart despite everything. Jason looked terrible. He had several days' worth of stubble, deep, dark circles under his eyes. His clothes were wrinkled and stained. The apartment behind him was tiny and messy, with empty alcohol bottles scattered everywhere. This wasn't the arrogant, well-dressed man who had humiliated me at my wedding. This was a broken man. Mom. His voice came out as a broken whisper. His eyes filled with tears immediately. Mom, you came. I came, I said, keeping my distance in the doorway. I wasn't going inside. I wasn't going to make things easy for him. Please, come in. I know the place is horrible, but, he started. But I interrupted him. I'm not coming in, Jason. I came to tell you a few things and then I will leave. His face crumbled. Mom, please. I need to talk to you. I need to explain. It's all been a nightmare. Tiffany left me, took the kids. I lost everything and what did you expect? My voice sounded harsher than I intended, but there was so much accumulated pain I couldn't contain it. Did you expect that after publicly humiliating me, calling my husband trash, trying to ruin the most important day of my life, everything would just stay the same? I was drunk, he tried to excuse himself. I didn't know what I was saying. If I had known who Robert really was, that's it, isn't it? I interrupted, feeling the rage grow in my chest. That's the truth? If you had known Robert as a billionaire, you would have treated me differently. If you had known he had money, you would have respected him. But because you thought he was poor, that he was worth nothing, you felt you had the right to treat us like trash. No, Mom, it's not like that, he stuttered. But we both knew it was exactly like that. Yes, it is, Jason. And that tells me everything I need to know about who you really are. You didn't love me. You didn't respect my happiness. You only cared about money. You only cared about how my marriage affected you. Please, his tears fell freely now. Please, Mom, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I made a terrible mistake. I was jealous. I was scared of losing you, and I reacted in the worst way possible. Jealous? I repeated with disbelief. You left me alone for 15 years and you were jealous? You ignored my calls, my pleas to spend time together? You treated me like a personal bank and you were jealous? You're right. I'm a bear. I mean, a beast. You're absolutely right. I was a horrible son. The worst son anyone could have. But I'm paying for it now. I'm losing everything. I already lost everything. And the only thing I have left is you. Mom, you're the only thing I have left in this world. You lost me too, I said, and the words came out with a deep pain that pierced my chest. You lost me the day you decided your pride and materialism were more important than your mother. No, he moaned, falling to his knees. Don't say that. Please don't say that. I'll give anything to fix it. Anything. Anything? I asked, crossing my arms. Then why were all your messages to Robert asking for money? Why wasn't a single one of those messages a sincere apology to me? Why did you try to sell our story to the media? His face went pale. How do you know about that? I know everything, Jason. I know about your debts. I know about the illegal lenders. I know Tiffany left you. I know you tried to use my marriage to get out of your problems. I know it all. He stayed silent, still on his knees on the dirty floor of that miserable apartment. I'm desperate. Mom, I need $500,000 by Friday or very bad people are going to hurt me. People who don't play around. They've already threatened me twice. And you came to me. I said with a calm I didn't feel. Not because you love me, not because you value our relationship, but because you need money. No, it's not just for the money. I miss you, Mom. I miss having you in my life. I miss what, Jason? Miss having someone you can manipulate? Miss having a personal bank that never said no? Miss having someone who cleaned up your messes without complaining? I miss my mother, he whispered, and there was something genuine in his voice that almost made me waver. I miss how you took care of me when I was a kid, how you were always there for me, how you made me feel safe and loved. That kid doesn't exist anymore, I said, feeling tears beginning to sting my eyes. He turned into a man who values money more than people, a man who married a toxic woman and allowed her to poison our relationship, a man who used me for years and then humiliated me when I finally found happiness. I can change, he pleaded. Give me a chance, just one more chance, and I promise I'll be different. How many chances have I given you already, Jason? How many times did I lend you money you never paid back? How many times did I forgive you for canceling our plans? How many times did I swallow my pain when you treated me like I was invisible? And what did you do with all those chances? He had no answer. He just stayed there, on his knees, crying like a child. I'm going to tell you something, I continued, my voice trembling but firm. Robert wanted to help you. When he found out about your financial problems, his first instinct was to pay it all. $500,000 is nothing to him. He could write that check right now and not even notice it in his bank account. Jason's eyes lit up with hope. Really? Would he do that? He would, I confirmed. But I told him no. The hope on his face turned into shock. What? Why? Because if I rescue you now, you will never learn. You will never understand the real value of things. You will never value people over money. You will keep being the same superficial and materialistic man who treated me like trash. But Mom, they're going to hurt me. These men aren't playing. They've threatened me with death. I know, I said, and my heart was breaking saying the next words. And that terrifies me. Because despite everything you've done to me, you're still my son, and I don't want anything bad to happen to you. But I can't keep being your eternal savior either. I can't keep being the person who fixes all your problems while you never face the consequences of your actions. So what am I supposed to do? He shouted, his voice full of desperation. Just wait for them to kill me? You're going to do what any responsible adult would do, I replied. You're going to go to the police. You're going to report the illegal lenders. You're going to ask for protection. And you're going to start rebuilding your life from zero, the right way this time. The police can't do anything against these people. They're too powerful. They have too many connections. Then I'll give you something better than money, I said, taking a business card out of my purse. It was Charles's. "This is Robert's lawyer. He is one of the best in the country. Call him. He will handle your legal situation, protect you from the lenders, and help you file for bankruptcy in an orderly way." Jason took the card with trembling hands. "And then what? After I'm safe, you will come back to my life." "That depends on you," I replied. "It depends on if you really change, if you learn from this, if you can become the man I know you can be, the man I raised you to be. And my kids? Can I at least see them? Can they meet their grandmother again?" That question hit me hard. Mason and Harper. I had missed them every day since the wedding. "I will talk to Tiffany," I promised. "But she doesn't owe me anything. If she decides she doesn't want me to see the kids for now, I'll have to respect that decision." "She hates you," Jason said bitterly. "She says this is all your fault, that if you hadn't married that old man, none of this would have happened." "Of course she says that," I replied without surprise, because assuming responsibility would mean admitting her unsustainable lifestyle contributed to this situation. I turned to leave, but then Jason called me one last time. "Mom, wait, just tell me one thing. Will you ever be able to forgive me?" I stopped in the hallway and looked at him over my shoulder. "I don't know, Jason. Honestly, I don't know. But I can tell you this. I want to be able to. I want to believe my son is still in there, under all that pride and materialism. So prove it to me. Prove to me that you're worth it." 6 months later, I was sitting on the terrace of our new house, a beautiful villa overlooking the ocean that Robert had designed specifically to my tastes. The sea breeze caressed my face while I drank my morning coffee and watched the waves breaking against the private beach. It was a life I had never imagined for myself, and yet, here I was, living it. My phone rang. It was Susan, my friend. "Barbara, turn on the news. Channel 7, quick." With my heart racing, I turned on the TV. What I saw left me breathless. It was Jason, but not the destroyed man I had seen 6 months ago. He was in a simple but dignified suit, standing in front of a group of young people at what looked like a community center. A year ago, Jason was saying to the camera, "I lost everything. I lost my house, my marriage, my money. But worst of all, I lost my dignity and almost lost my mother. Today I am here to tell these young people my story, not so you pity me, but so you learn from my mistakes." The reporter asked him questions about his fall and his recovery. Jason spoke openly about his debts, about how he had lived beyond his means, about how he had valued material things over the people he loved. "My mother," he said, and his voice cracked a little, "gave me the hardest but most important lesson of my life. She let me fall. She let me face the consequences of my actions, and at first I hated her for it. But now I understand it was the greatest act of love she could have given me." Robert appeared behind me and put a hand on my shoulder. "Are you okay, honey?" "I don't know," I whispered, unable to take my eyes off the screen. The report continued, showing how Jason had declared bankruptcy with Charles's help, how he had found a job at a construction company, starting from the bottom as an assistant. They showed his small but clean and tidy apartment. They showed how he now gave talks at schools and community centers about financial literacy and the consequences of materialism. "And his relationship with his mother?" asked the reporter. Jason lowered his gaze. "We are working on that. Slowly. She gave me her number 3 months ago, and we talk once a week. They are difficult conversations. There is a lot of pain to heal. But for the first time in years, I feel like we are being honest with each other." It was true. After he called Charles that day in his apartment, things had begun to change gradually. Charles had handled his legal situation brilliantly, reaching agreements with the lenders and protecting Jason from any violence. The bankruptcy had been humiliating for him, but necessary. 2 months after our meeting, Jason had sent me a letter, not a text message, not an email, but a handwritten 10-page letter. In it, he detailed all his regret, his arrogance, his materialism, how he had allowed Tiffany to poison our relationship. But most importantly, he apologized. He didn't ask for anything. He didn't mention money. He just apologized, deeply and sincerely. That letter made me cry for hours. Robert held me while I processed all those complicated feelings. I gave him my phone number a week later. Our first conversation was clumsy, awkward, full of long silences, but we continued. Every week, without fail, we spoke for 30 minutes. And his children? The reporter continued on the TV. That is in process, Jason replied. Tiffany and I are in co-parenting therapy. It was something I suggested because I want my children to have functional parents, even if we aren't together. Is there any message you want to give to people going through similar situations? Jason looked directly at the camera. Yes, pride will destroy you if you let it. Materialism will consume you. And the people who truly love you, the ones willing to let you fall so you learn to get up, those are the ones you must value more than anything in the world. I also want to say something to my mother. If she is watching this, my heart stopped. Mom, Jason said, with tears in his eyes, I know you are probably watching this. I want you to know that every day I work on being the man you deserved as a son. Every day I try to be better. I don't expect you to forgive me tomorrow, or next year, or ever if you don't want to. But I want you to know I understand now. I understand everything, and I love you. I have always loved you, even when I was too stupid and arrogant to show it. Tears fell down my face uncontrollably. Robert hugged me tightly. The next month, I received another surprise. Charles called to inform me that Jason had returned the money he owed, the $5,000 Robert had paid for me. He worked overtime for 4 months to gather the money, Charles explained. That night, I sent a text message to Jason for the first time, just 3 words. I'm proud of you. His response came 20 minutes later. That means more to me than any amount of money in the world. 2 weeks later, we met at a neutral coffee shop. It was awkward at first. There was so much to say, and at the same time nothing to say. But slowly, we began to talk. Would you like to meet the kids again? I asked cautiously. Jason's eyes lit up. Really? Would you do that? They are my grandchildren, I said simply. I never stopped loving them. The reunion with Mason and Harper was one of the most emotional experiences of my life. Robert was wonderful with them. He taught them to swim in our pool, told them stories, showed them that wealth doesn't make you better than anyone. One day, while we watched the kids playing on the beach, Jason told me, "Thank you for not giving up on me, Mom." Parents never give up on our children, I replied. But sometimes we have to let them fall so they learn to fly. Robert and I established a foundation in honor of his first wife, Letitia. The Letitia Foundation helped older women who had been abandoned by their families. It was my idea, born from my own experience. One night, exactly 1 year after our wedding, Robert and I renewed our vows. This time it was a small ceremony at our house, only with the people who really mattered. Jason was there, with Mason and Harper. When the moment for the vows came, Robert took my hands and said, "A year ago, I promised you eternal love without you knowing who I really was. Today, I promise it to you again, now that you know everything." After the ceremony, Jason approached Robert. "Mr. Sterling, I never apologized to you properly. You are a good man, and my mother is lucky to have found you." Robert extended his hand. "The past is the past, Jason. What matters is the man you are today." That night, lying in Robert's arms, I reflected on everything that had happened. A year ago, I had been humiliated on the most important day of my life, and now I had found not only love and security, but also purpose, dignity, and a peace I had never known before. "What are you thinking about?" Robert asked. "That my whole life changed forever," I replied, "and that I wouldn't change anything that happened." "Why not?" "Because it led me exactly where I needed to be. It taught me who I really was. It gave me the strength to defend myself. And it brought me to you." Robert kissed my forehead. "You are the strongest woman I know, Barbara." "No," I corrected him gently. "I am a woman who learned to be strong when I had no other choice. And that makes all the difference."